So I've been asked to, or I've volunteered to do a little video on how I do my shadow powder brows. You can use basically a hard needle or a flex needle for this. 18 or larger is great because you want as large of a needle grouping as possible. This is an 18 flex, and I believe it's from Daria Chupri. And I'm just going to put it into my disposable handle. I like to work with mine not completely on a angle. I like it to be a little bit still more up and down. I've drawn out on the template here, you can see, so this one's already been done, and I just did this so that I can show you what the second pass would look like when you add more density. This is one pass with the brow here. I'm taking my pigment and I'm starting at the back end. I always start at the tails, and it's a tapping motion. So you're tapping it and pulling, you're pushing forward and pulling up. Pushing forward as you're tapping and pulling up. And what that will do is it pushes the pigment into the skin, and then as you pull up, it releases the pigment into the skin. I like to have quite a bit of pigment on my needle so that I can use it while I'm working to move from section to section. You want to overlap each of your tapping sections so that you don't get a stop and start kind of motion. It's almost like if you were mowing your lawn and how you kind of go over the same section that you've already gone over to make sure that it's nice and trimmed. It's that same point, same idea. So I'm just tapping into the pad with a forward and up motion. I've self-taught this, so you know, if other people have other techniques that work, by all means, please do share them. I think the more we share, the better we're going to be able to enhance the industry for everybody involved. So as I'm going up, I'm just overlapping each section, using my pigment that's on my mat as I continue to work forward. And if this is on a person, you're doing the same thing. But practice this on a mat first, please. Don't go right into working on a client like this. Know your technique before you start working on humans. I think that's the least that we can do for consideration, seeing as though they're giving us their life, not just their face. So as I continue to tap forward, I'm pulling that pigment with me and filling each of these spots. Just going to wipe away so you can kind of get an idea. You see how that gives that soft shadowy effect there? So each of these little strokes will blur together when it's healed. Then as you want to darken, all you do to darken it is you go and do a second pass. So to create that ombre effect where the tails are a lot darker than the fronts, you would do a full pass with this and then come back over and do additional passes, each time letting your pigment soak. And you can see that once you go over it again, your pigment on that tail there is darker than the pigment at the front. So I'll just show you again here. So we're just going to go over the areas that we've already gone over. And of course you want to keep the same type of stretch. If you were microblading, you still are doing that tight stretch. And all this is allowing is more pigment to be pushed into the skin. And you're not ripping at the skin, you're just pushing it. See how now that section there is darker? So now I've got more pigment saturation here than at the front. So if we did the one pass all the way through like we did on the other side here, one pass all the way through, I went a little bit lighter at the front, I went a little bit lighter at the front and then darker at the back. Now you can also, on your second pass, you can crisscross what you've already done. So if you're doing a vertical stroke, you can cross that vertical stroke creating a crisscross, which will also allow pigment, more pigment density on the tissue. So you can go cross this way and cross that way, almost like what we do when we do lips. It's that same type of technique. So you cross one way, and then you're crossing the other way, and that's going to give even more saturation. So see how much darker that side is from this side by crisscrossing the patterns. Don't do that. So you'll see the more you crisscross the pattern, the darker you'll get. So you can continue to do the straight tapping, or you can crisscross it. And again, giving a darker looking result. So that's how I do my shadowy effect with a manual tool. You don't need a fancy blade. I've also just recently purchased these little stubby blades. This is my first time ever using it. I'm using this one because this one was punctured when I purchased it. I received it and it was punctured, but you can see the tip here is just a little cluster of needles, and I'm just going to try it and see how it works. I know that some people are doing this type of ombre shadow effect with these clustered round needles, so I wanted to check it out just to make sure. And it's literally a up and down tap that they're doing. It's a pointillism. We do this in the film industry for color effects. So let's see what that one. So there you go. You can go lighter. I'm doing tighter on that. You can see the little dots there, the pointillism dots, and that's from this needle. And I just ordered these on Amazon. I don't know anybody that's carrying them yet. I'd hope Daria gets them in, because I'd like to continue to buy all my needles from her. And maybe Tina Davies will incorporate this needle into her. But with Tina's needles, you can do this shadowy effect with this same technique. I would just use the larger of the needle configurations. Her 18 curve would be great for this. So there you go. So you can see that dotting powdery effect, and all of this will migrate a little bit too once it's, you know, in the skin. So you're going to get a more consistent, even color all the way through. So I hope that helps, and I want to thank Daria and Tina for giving me the opportunity to show this technique, and for their support with my classes. I'm going to be showing this technique in my microblading brow class. They're going to learn the strokes as well as the shadow effect, so that they can come out with an extensive amount of knowledge. Now, another thing I just wanted to also explain here, see these strokes at the front? These ones, I actually dragged my needle. So I kind of pulled the needle like so. Of course, it wasn't this needle, but it was the other needle. But it gives you that effect at the front. So if you want a softer effect at the front, you can use the needle and just pull it. Or if you want these strokes, you can, you know, do them vertically. At this point, you can kind of experiment and see what you like the best and create your own technique, because in the end, it all comes down to the artist that's doing the work. And if we all share our knowledge, then as a group and a collective, we can all become better artists at our craft, and that's ultimately what it's about. So thank you, Rhonda, for having this lovely forum for us to share, and Daria and Tina for your ongoing continued support, as well as Taryn Darling with LI Pigments. This is Ebony Brown that I used, and that's the velvet. I love the velvet. Actually, I mixed the two, the velvet and the aqua, together. I hybrid it, I guess you could call it. I find the consistency works really great for any of the microblading. So always use a quality pigment. LI is by far one of our superior brands in the industry, so stay with what works and what we know is tested and true. And keep practicing and show your work, and hopefully we'll get some beautiful shadowed brows coming out soon. Thanks so much and have a good day.